Beating the water doesn't mean that you're swimming. Beating the water harder still doesn't mean that you're doing any better. Let me ask you something. Are you actually making any financial progress, or are you just busy? Because those two things are not the same. You wake up early, you work long hours during the work week, and you're chasing opportunities as they come. You're keeping your ear to the ground, listening in for any new odd job, any consultancy, any role that you can complete to increase your income. You're thinking about money consistently. And on the surface, it looks like you're doing everything right. But the moment you check your reality, when you take a moment to look at your bank balance, at your spending that month, at the remaining obligations you have to pay for, when your emergency fund savings haven't really grown, your investments are inconsistent, if they exist at all, and somehow, despite all this hard work you've been doing, you still feel behind. So, the conclusion you come to seems obvious. I just need to make more money. And listen, it sounds reasonable. But there's a problem with this thinking. It's not just that you're busy. It's that your busyness doesn't have much direction. It's unstructured. Let me tell you a brief story. During my college years in the early 2000s, when I was at school back in California, I had an East African friend who was part of our social group, a group of young African students that went to the same school. But he was several years ahead of us. He'd already completed 2 master's degrees and was working on his PhD by the time we met him. He was obviously highly educated and had many years of work experience even at his young age. He was working at a pharmacy and doing very well at a local chain store, but he wasn't getting the career opportunities he should have gotten with his level of education and experience. And he had a huge family obligations back home. And of course, was under significant pressure to provide financial support. So he did extra work on the side to earn more money. But it was never enough then. It won't be enough now, and it will never be enough. The solution to his financial load was never work harder. Hi, if this is the first time listening in, my name is Isaac Nkusi. I'm a financial literacy expert focused on financial decision-making architecture with over 15 years of experience working with organizations, professionals, and business owners at various income levels. Listen, professionals aren't struggling with money because they lack strong income. You're struggling because your money decisions lack structure, which is costing you invaluable time and compounded expenses. When your money hits your account, does it automatically know where to go and where to grow? If not, let's fix that. Over the years, I've seen this pattern so many times. Let me tell you about someone I worked with not so long ago. He's in his mid-30s. He's a very smart, very driven, and extremely disciplined young man. The kind of person, people respect even in his youth. He had a full-time job working at a development company. And on top of that, he had a little bit of a side business. He was doing some freelance work on the weekends and every other evening. And he was always looking for the next opportunity, the next odd job, the next gig. If there was a way to earn more, he was all over it. And if you asked him what his plan was, he'd tell you very clearly, if I can just increase my income, then all my problems would fix themselves. I'd have enough to meet my lifestyle. Does that sound familiar? Because from the outside, this looks like ambition. It looks admirable. But when we take a deeper look, something didn't add up. Despite all of his effort, his hard work, his long hours, his financial position wasn't improving significantly. His money was coming in, but he wasn't really building anything lasting, anything that worked outside of his hourly effort. It was like he was pouring water into a bucket that had really small holes at the bottom. No dramatic leaks, nothing very obvious. You couldn't just see water gushing out, but quiet, constant leaks. And here's where it gets interesting. Every time he earned more, his life would adjust. Every 2 to 3 years. Not in some dramatic, reckless way. He wasn't wasting money. It was just a natural, a quiet, cunning increase in his lifestyle expense. He'd buy more expensive food, better quality. He'd have more convenience in his life, order more. He'd help people in his circle more. He'd take on more responsibility. Nothing again extreme and nothing technically wrong, but just enough that his income increases never translated to his money doing something to generate money on its own. His money getting a job to go find more money for him. That never happened. And at the same time, his life outside of work started to shrink because he had less time for socializing, less time with family, less time for rest, only more pressure. And here's a reality, because when your solution to the financial trouble you have is always, I need to work more, there is no end point to your labor. You don't solve the problem. All you're doing is expanding your effort while your lifestyle expands as well. And this is where most people, a lot of, especially professionals, get stuck, because it doesn't feel like they're making a mistake. It feels like they're disciplined. It feels like they're mature, they're adulting. But what's actually going wrong here? Why does working harder not translate into financial progress for so many people? Here's the answer. Here's what most people don't realize. Working harder increases your income, but it does nothing to fix how that income is used. And if there is no structure, more income just means more day-to-day decisions of what you should do with your money, more pressure coming from those who you take responsibility over, those you have obligations to, and more leakage of your money bleeding out to causes that you had not initially planned for, but now you're taking ownership over. Friends, family, potential new sources of fun, potential new sources of expense. All your money is leaking out to these influences. So earning more, working harder to earn more doesn't do anything to control the way you're spending the more that you're earning. So it's not just a money problem, and it never has been. Again, it never will be. Your financial struggle will never be just an income problem. That's one half of the equation. The other half that most of us don't recognize, don't even realize exists, is the decision system problem. The decision of how to spend. And how structured that decision is, how locked in you are to that system, decision system of how you spend your money. Because every time money comes in, if there is no decision-making system, you decide every time, every instance, what to spend on, what to delay, and what to ignore. And there is no overarching structure to inform you what you should be doing based on your decisions, based on your goals, and based on the lifestyle you want to live. So if those decisions are not structured, they become default decisions. They default to urgency, They default to convenience. They default to emotion. I'm tired. I don't want to think about it. Just whatever. Do whatever. All right, let me try to say this clearly. Being busy is not progress. Without structure, busyness is just repeated reaction. Not repeated action, repeated reaction. There is very little intellect, very little order, very little purpose in reaction. Somebody steps on your foot and you lash out. It's a reaction. It's not intelligent. It's not thought out. It's not purposeful. It's natural. You're solving problems as they show up, paying things as they come and making decisions on the fly. And because nothing is organized, everything feels urgent. It feels like you have to deal with it right away. And that is part of the reason why you feel overwhelmed. It's not exactly because you have so much to do, but because there's no framework in place for you. So here's the shift that you need to make to resolve. You don't need to put in more effort alone. What you need is a financial operating rhythm, a way of doing things, a culture and identity. A fixed time, for example, every week, where you review what you did that week. What did you spend your money on? Do you have receipts? Make it a culture to collect receipts for what you spend your money on. Look at what's working. Look at what's not working. Fix it and decide what happens next week. Because when your financial decisions have a place in your calendar, they have a position in your life, in your culture, in the way you do things, they stop following you everywhere else. Your financial decisions don't chase you down every day. It stops being something you have to decide every time a question is posed to you. Hey, brother, hey, sister, you know, you're a very good friend to me. I know that I haven't talked to you in a month, in 5 months, in half a year, in 2 years. We haven't spoken, but you know I love you deeply. You know, every time we get together, it's like no time has passed. Let me tell you something. I need some money from you, and I'll pay you back in 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks that never come. Hey, friend, let's go out this weekend and do this, that, and the other. You have a great job. I know you have the money. Let's go have fun. You've been working hard. You deserve it. Let's go do it. Each of these decisions you're making in the moment. There is no framework guiding whether this is the weekend that you go out and have fun with your friends or not. Whether you have the money to give out to your friends when they ask you, so-called friends, when they ask you, because you have no framework, no structure to inform whether you have the money this month to give to your friends because they're in a position of need. And whether you're sure they will return the money to you in 2 weeks or not, you are able to make the give. You can give the money. You can even afford to give it and lose it. Give it up. This is your money. This is for you to solve your problem. I don't need it back. Because there's no system informing whether you are capable of giving that money away this month based on what you're trying to achieve. And when that decision-making system is in place, everything will start to change for you if you live by it. Because once you understand this, you stop trying to outwork your financial problems. You start structuring and strategizing your way out of your financial problems, not working your way out. Look, right now, most people operate this way. They earn money. So because they have a job, they earn money. And their first focus is, how do I make more? How can I make more of this money? But what they need to become, instead of somebody who earns, they need to be somebody who earns and somebody who allocates. An allocator. Someone who decides, where does my money go? even before it arrives. Because income without allocation is just movement on your account. It's zeros coming in and zeros going out, right? No structure, no plan, no progress. So if you're listening to this, I want you to start here to solve this financial structure problem, the lack of a financial structure. Pick a day, once a week, twice a week maybe. End of the week, like a Sunday, beginning of the week, like a Monday morning. But it's a time for you. It's a time that you've given yourself. It's part of your identity, your culture as a money manager, as a professional, as an adult. A fixed time that you give yourself, a dedicated time. And in that time, do 3 things. First, review your money. Where did it go? I want to know where my money went this week. Where did I want it to go and where has it gone? And then make adjustments. What needs to change from where I decided I wanted my money to go and where it actually went? And then choose what happens with your money this coming week. Where is it going? What's it going to do? How much of it is going to do that? This is my plan. And make it an extensive plan to fit all that you're trying to achieve with your money according to your priorities. This doesn't need to be complicated. That's all. That's all you're going to do. Just these 3 things. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it will be powerful. It will inevitably dramatically change the way your money is used each month. Because with this system in place, this simple 3-part system, reviewing your money, where it went, adjusting your money, deciding what needs to change from last week to this week, and then deciding this week what you're going to do with your money and how much. Just those 3 things. What happens when you do this is you immediately stop reacting to your money. You're doing what you planned to do. You're directing it. You're giving your money a job, instructions on what it has to do. With these instructions, your money can finally act in a direction that will get you towards your goal with enough time and enough consistency. So, if you take nothing else from this episode of the Money Blueprint podcast, take this. Working harder will increase your income, sure. But only structure will increase your financial independence and ultimately your wealth. And if you don't build that structure, you will always keep running. You will always keep beating the water, but you're not going to move. At least you will not move forward. You might very well move backwards. Now, if you're listening to this and something has clicked for you, if you're starting to realize that your problem isn't effort, it's structure, I've created a private list where I'll break this down step by step. No overwhelm, simple action steps, clear guidance on how you can actually organize your money so it starts working and you can stop reacting. If you're serious about fixing this lack of structure with your money, the link is in the description. It takes less than a minute to fill it out. Before we go, my producer, as always, has some questions from our recent emails she'll read out, and I'll respond to accordingly. So let's dive in.
First question from Kenny from Kigali. At some point, I started asking myself, how much money is enough? When do you stop chasing more and start living? How do you define financial success in a healthy way?
That is, again, another one of the great questions, great mysteries of life. How much is enough, right? Because enough is an unspecified amount, right? 10 could be enough, 1,000 could be enough, 1,000,000 might not be enough, right? A billion might not be enough, right? It really depends on the individual. The way that I have always addressed this question is, what are you trying to achieve? Because if you can be clear on what it is that you want out of your financial life, what are the goals that you want to achieve, then the cost of achieving them becomes enough to achieve them, right? You have what you need, but you need to put a number together or some kind of endpoint, some kind of goal. If you are satisfied with that goal and the definition of that goal, then you can build towards it and feel satisfied at the achievement of it. So if your goal is to have a quiet little farm in your in your tribal village, and you want to have a quiet home by the lake, and you want to live out your later years quietly in this space, then putting that together will be enough, assuming that that suits what your goals are. And if your goals are to have a high-rise apartment somewhere in the middle of a metropolitan city where you can look out in the morning of your your ceiling to floor glass windows and survey the entirety of the skyline from your apartment window. If that is your life goal, then what is required of you to get to that? And are you capable with the resources you have, with the time you have, and with the investment vehicles that you can use? Can you achieve your goal? These become the questions that will get you closer, if not exactly, to what enough means to you. Excellent question. And that's probably going to be an ongoing question for a very long time for all of us.
Second question from Vanessa from Kampala. In our culture, events like weddings, funerals, and ceremonies are important, but they can be very expensive. How do you participate without putting yourself under financial strain?
This is another difficult one because in our cultures, you're right, participating in life events of our clansmen, of our friends, our family, our circle is extremely important, especially in collectivist cultures, African cultures, but other cultures around the world. In my view, there needs to be a point at which either each month or each occurrence, you're saying, this is as far as I can go. And the reason why this is important is because if you invest too much of yourself in one element or one aspect of your obligation as an adult, then you're sacrificing something else by design, because nobody has unlimited funds. So for example, an extreme example, if your entire income, let's say your entire salary, goes towards cultural events, weddings, funerals, ceremonies that you are default a part of because you're part of your community, and you're always contributing to these, your whole salary is contributing towards these, then you're not going to survive very long, and all your other obligations are going to be ignored. So there needs to be some kind of framework, some kind of rule that you follow about how you contribute, how much you contribute, how frequently you contribute, how many contributions you will make in a given period, like a month, a max amount of contribution, something like that. Because the reality is you can't contribute to everything, always, to the full amount required in each case. And even, this one is probably the more sensitive element, but even when you genuinely have absolutely nothing left and somebody else wants something from you and you can't give, even in that situation, somebody's going to be dissatisfied with you, somebody's going to be unhappy with you, somebody's going to curse you, right? Depending on the people in your circles, of course. So it's a tightrope to walk, admittedly, but the only functional way I see to walk this tightrope is to give yourself a cap and accept the consequences that come with giving yourself a structure. Because the alternative is chaos. Excellent question.
Last question from Noble, 28 and living in Kigali. Sometimes I spend money just to maintain a certain image, clothes, places, and lifestyle. I know it's not sustainable, but I also don't want people to think I'm struggling. How do you detach your identity from money?
Coincidentally, this question is the topic of our next episode of the Money Blueprint podcast. And yes, maintaining appearances can be very, very costly. But like I mentioned with the previous question, every time you choose to do one thing with your money, you're choosing not to do something else, right? You're sacrificing something in order to do another thing, right? So if a large percentage of your income is going towards appearances, your clothes, the places you're seen, the lifestyle you lead, the car that you're driving, if a significant portion of your income is going to that element of appearance, and particularly if this is the income that you're spending straight from your job and not exactly money that's coming from assets that are making money for you, then you're sacrificing your wealth for appearance. You're sacrificing an opportunity to invest for an opportunity to spend, right? And by the way, your effort to make appearances look good might not even impress the people that you're trying to impress. It might have no effect at all. It might also have a negative effect. So my position, and again, all of us have to come to our own philosophical position on what is an appropriate use of our money. All of us have to come to this position on our own. But it's better to come to this decision when you have all the information and you're weighing options with all the possible information available. This is why I'd suggest that it might be better for anybody to invest their income, especially their salaried income, in owning things that generate more money for you. And when you have multiple income streams, money coming from assets, and then you invest some of that money in appearances, that's a better approach, right? Money, income from your salary first going towards survival and asset acquisition, buying and controlling assets. And then if you want to spoil yourself, money from your assets can do it. Great question. And good luck. These are all really deeply philosophical questions. So absolutely good luck to you all as you contemplate how to handle. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that today's conversation has given you some of the tools that you need to create the life you want with your money. If you have any questions you'd also like answered, feel free to send them to our email, themoneyblueprintpodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on our social media platforms. Have a great week.
This podcast is for general informational and educational purposes only, and does not provide financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. Do not make decisions before consulting a qualified professional. This podcast is brought to you by LF Media, home of great African podcasts.